Hello and welcome to Inside Westminster, our first ever episode here on Sky News. I am your host, Lord Kitchener, and today we have our filling in for the Earl of Suffolk. We have the Right Honourable Callum Trust MP, Sky News' political editor. Callum, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight.
So what we've seen here is this week is the state opening of Parliament occurring on Monday with the King's Speech passing, and Callum, you were there as leader of the opposition. What did you think of the King's Speech, and what were your takeaways from it?
Well, some parts of it were good, and I will admit it will benefit the nation. From what I did see, there were some good clauses, but I do think it is sort of a repeat from your King's Speech from when you were Prime Minister. It was just a bit more detailed, if you get what I mean.
Interesting. It's interesting. Both you and I were former prime ministers, and we've definitely had our share of ups and downs in this. But we both understand what is at stake, and the government has achieved a major victory in the Commons, passing their King's Speech. Or, under my term, it was through a confidence and supply motion through the Conservatives, where we were able to pass the King's Speech. And we were able to get things done. So it's interesting, the total respect for the Prime Minister in that way of getting that done. But, we've seen some political shakeup as we occur this week with the the Conservatives electing a new party leader who will be joining us here in studio on Sky News on Inside Westminster. We'll be having the new leader of the opposition, the Right Honourable Mega Minor, MP. And then we'll also be having the Conservative Chief Whip later on. We'll have Organised Owen here on the program, the Conservative Party Chief Whip. So we're gonna come over to the new Conservative Party leader, and we will have him join us on the program. We have with us today the Right Honourable Mega Minor MP, Leader of the Opposition. Welcome to the program, sir.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
It's always a privilege to have the Leader of the Opposition, the person to hold the government account in the Commons, with us here on Sky News on Inside Westminster. So tell us, how has it been now that you are elected Leader of the Opposition? How does it feel to be in that position that you are the chief accountable person to hold this government to account in the Commons?
Well, it feels great to be back in the pilot seat, so to speak, to be able to lead this party, the party that I love. And I'm really looking forward to this term. I think it's going to be a really productive term. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for us to step in, hold this government to account, and scrutinise them wherever we can. Because that is the essence of democracy, scrutiny and opposition, which is what we'll be providing.
And so, obviously, as basically the new kid on the block, you will have a lot of positions to fill in your shadow cabinet. Have you begun in talks with different MPs on the Conservative benches of who you might fill in those shadow cabinet positions?
Now, I don't want to come on here and say anything that might be wrong, because we haven't finalised our shadow cabinet list yet. But we have been looking at every single position. There's going to be a number of important and key changes as we provide our alternative option for the people as a government. We're here, first and foremost, to show the British people that they don't have to settle for this government, and that there is another way, which is our way and our government. And the reshuffle will be released tomorrow, and it will have a number of important and key individuals in it, and I really look forward to seeing what we're going to be able to achieve in this term.
And what are your plans for the Conservative Party? What do you see happening in the next several weeks of the remainder of this government's term? What do you plan on doing? What do you want to see happen in the Commons? And what do you want to see done for Britain?
Well, obviously, the point of a political party is, at the end of the day, to win elections, and that is what I hope to do by the time the next electoral cycle comes around. I think we are in a bit of a weak position at the moment. There's a degree of inactivity within the party, and my main objective is just going to be to reform and reinvigorate a sense of excitement within the party. I want to be able to I want to be able to stoke the kind of fire that we had previously and be able to put forward our position as a party that can win elections, because we've been shut out of government for a long time now, and I know that we have what it takes to get back into government and back into making change. So that is what this term is going to be. That's what we're going to be doing this term. We're going to be setting out our plan for the people, which will be coming soon.
And what policies is the Conservative Party running on for the remainder of this term and leading up to the next general election? What policies do you want to see enacted for the betterment of Britain?
Well, first and foremost, we have to provide a level of good government. And of course, you can throw around the word good government, and it doesn't really mean much. But really, what good government means to me is having an active government, having one that's accountable, and having one that's transparent. And we haven't seen much of that from this new government. I know it's early days, but we've only seen a degree, we've only seen a few statements from members of the cabinet, and they just haven't been very open with their decisions. And what a mega minor government would look like is a government that works for the people, is answerable to the people, and is also accountable to the people, which is exactly what I hope to do once I get into government. And it's exactly what I will be ensuring this government strives to do.
That's, beautifully put. And so what do you, the main obstacle for almost every government that has been, elected and for every party is getting MPs, getting members of the Lords to agree with the government. So how do you, if elected, how do you plan on overcoming that obstacle of making sure that your legislation that you would introduce if you were in power to be passed in the House of Lords?
Well, that's a very good question. It's a very complicated question. I could sit here and go on about this for hours if you let me. But in all my times in governments in different row nations, the House of Lords has always been a little bit of a thorn in the back of the House of Commons. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I feel like the House of Lords being there to provide scrutiny and that level of opposition is very important to the democratic process. So I won't be looking to subdue the Lords, so to speak, but I want to have a healthy working relationship with the Lords to ensure that we can pass the legislation that needs to be passed, but at the same time ensuring that they can still provide amendments and the necessary scrutiny which makes up our democracy.
And so, what policies, if you had to list your top 3 priorities, going in, and that you would be elected to government, what would be the top 3 things that you would want to see done?
Well, obviously it's still early days and we have an election quite far away, but I can give you a few pointers as to what is going to be coming in the future. First of all, we want to ensure that we have an active place on the international stage. And in PMQs later tonight, I will be questioning the Prime Minister as to his inaction on the international stage. There's been a number of key things that he has not responded to. So my number one of my most important policies is to ensure that we're active on an international stage. We don't want any more embarrassments internationally. We want to ensure that we're a strong figurehead. Number 2, we want to ensure that we have activity within the different departments and agencies. Obviously, we've seen the British Armed Forces, which is the most notable example of this, falling into a state of inactivity. There's general confusion about what's going on within the armed forces. No one really knows. Recruitment has just reopened, but I know that they can do more. So a second Conservative policy is to ensure that we meet our activity requirements within every different agency, and we'll be implementing that through a number of different means, whether that be incentivizing recruitment through rewards, or ensuring that we have up-to-date recruitment standards to encourage as many people as possible to join. And I'd say my third policy is, simply put, to ensure that we can get as much legislation through as possible, which will streamline and, make the group more realistic for a roadblock setting. And there's a number of areas which could be adapted for this. We have to ensure that the legislation that's in place works well in our community. We have to ensure that it's suited for roadblocks and there's no hiccups or anything like that. So that would be my third focus, to pass legislation which is good, has support from every party, and just improves the lives of British citizens on a day-to-day basis. So that's my 3 priorities moving forward.
It's excellent stuff. And we appreciate you coming on. I guess my next question for you is how would you describe your leadership style, and how has it evolved since you took on the role of leader of the opposition?
I've always believed in collective leadership, so to speak. Not in the fact that there's multiple party leaders or anything like that, but in the fact that I like to listen to the people who I work with. And I like to take their advice, I like to listen to them and ensure that all of their views are heard and represented in my leadership. I think a lot of people, and this is one of the biggest reasons why people have downfalls in political systems, they don't listen to their cabinet and they don't listen to their party members when, at the end of the day, they're the people who put them in this position of power in the first place. So they have a degree of trust and a kind of duty to listen to them and ensure that their views are heard. And that's exactly what I do. I speak to my cabinet, I make sure to treat them with respect, and my leadership style is just, it's a friendly style, which is why I have so much success with everyone that I work with. I'm able to foster really good working relationships with people, and through Roblox, Politics, I've developed a number of friends that I have for life, and I'm not ashamed to say that. And that can only really be done through my unique style, I'd say.
It is very, very well put. And so my next question for you is, who has been your biggest influence in politics, and what way have they shaped your approach to leadership and policymaking?
Do you mean someone in real life or someone in Roblox?
Both. Could be either or.
Well, I could give you two examples here. The first of which, if I may, is a bit of a history lesson, but it goes all the way back to my time in Britannic Egmos United Kingdom, which is where I started in about 2018. And it was at that point that I was under a prime minister named Commander Otis Griffin, and he's no longer with us. He's long gone. And it was where I got my first taste of politics through him. He gave me my first position in BUK, which was Chancellor of the Exchequer, and he had the same style of leadership which I have now, which is to listen to everyone, to delegate tasks when necessary, and to ensure that everyone has a voice and everyone has a place within government. Because at the end of the day, we're here to have fun. This is a game. And for me, Otis made it really fun for me. And that's what I like to carry forward. And if we're talking about someone in real life, I would say probably one of my biggest inspirations is one of my biggest inspirations is sorry, this is a tricky question. There's a lot of people who have had an influence on me, but I'd say probably Tony Blair, because his style of leadership really appeals to me in the fact that it's more personable than other people. He really managed to appeal to everyone, because he was able to show that he's just a normal person like everyone else, and that he wasn't on a pedestal or anything like that. And that's exactly my style of leadership. I want people to know that I'm accessible and I'm here to listen, and I'm not going to air them or ignore them for hours at a time. I'm here for them because I'm a public servant at the end of the day, and it's my duty to listen to the people, and that's exactly what I want to make clear.
Alrighty. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing the United Kingdom in the next few weeks, and how do you plan to address them?
I'd say the biggest problem facing us is inactivity. Obviously, the group isn't as big as other row nations have been in the past, ZUK, BUK, anything like that. So there's an issue of the fact that we don't really have enough people to form a fully effective group. Like, a lot of people have multiple jobs. A lot of people work really hard in certain positions because there's not enough people to do those jobs. So I'd say inactivity, yes. And a part of inactivity falls down to the group administration level, which is out of the remit of government. But an important part of it falls within government as well, and we kind of have the duty to ensure that recruitment is done effectively, and that recruitment is done in a manner which encourages people to sign up. So I'd say one of the biggest priorities for me is to ensure that people are employed, people have jobs, and we can do that by doing mass recruitment drives, by revisiting the application processes for the army, for the police, ensuring that they're up to date and they meet our modern standards, and just ensuring that everyone is aware of the opportunities that are available to them.
And my final question to you is, what message would you like to send to the voters who may be undecided or skeptical about the direction you wish to take the country?
Well, my message to them is this. I know a lot of people in this group know me and they know what I've done in the past in other nations such as ZUK, but a lot of people also don't know me. And I seem to have come in as a bit of a dark horse candidate and have kind of taken the leadership out of the hands of people who have people who have been in this community for a long time. And I can understand that and I can see why that would be a point of concern. But my message to those people is just wait and see, watch and see what I can do, because there's a reason why I was so successful in other groups. It's because I'm an effective leader and I didn't do it by luck and I didn't do it by chance. I did it because I know what I'm doing, I know how politics works, and I know that I can do it again in this group. So watch this space.
Alrighty. Well, that was. Thank you, sir, for joining us on this program. That is the Leader of the Opposition, the Right Honourable Mega Minor MP, joining us here on the program. We're going to take a short break as we switch our guests out. And up next, we'll be having the Conservative Chief Whip, the Right Honourable Organised Owen MP. We'll take a short break as we switch out our guests, and we'll get prepared for our next segment. Alrighty, and we are back here on Inside Westminster with the Earl of Suffolk and Lord Kitchener. Filling in for the Earl of Suffolk is the Right Honourable Callum Trust MP, Sky News' political editor. Joining us now here on the program, we have the Conservative Chief Whip, the Right Honourable Organised Owen MP. Mr. Owen, welcome to the program. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, so now to my question to you. My first question to you is, you obviously were running for the Conservative Party leadership, then you had dropped out, and then you had endorsed Mega Minor, who is now the Leader of the Opposition and Leader of the Conservative Party. What do you see as the next steps of the Conservative Party under the leadership of Mega Minor?
I think Mega Minor said a lot of it in his segment of the show. I mean, one thing that caused a lot of concern for me, obviously, during the King's speech, was a lot of inactivity, and the fact that some of our party members and members of Parliament were only attending until after the King's speech, which is quite a concern for me, because I believe if you're going to be active and committed for the party, and to be very committed to obviously serving as the opposition, you're going to have to be there on time. And like Mega Minor said, inactivity has been a problem, but I believe under his leadership that can soon change.
And so I guess, what do you see as the Conservative Party Chief Whip, the main problem of inactivity, and how do you invigorate getting MPs there at session, and how do you ensure that you can ensable that your party's MPs are showing up and properly scrutinizing this government?
Well, I've already had a discussion with, obviously, when I congratulated Mega Minor, I basically did say to him, if there's any problems you want me to discuss, I will do that straight away. And I think inactivity came straight away. And I've already got a plan to obviously stop this inactivity through Parliament. So when it comes to Friday, we should have a full house, I'm hoping, and I'm hoping to address these issues straight away. I understand Megaminer's only just been elected today, so obviously we're not going to rush him because obviously, like I said, he's got a shadow cabinet to prepare for, and obviously he's got to get ready to obviously be in his role he is in now. Because, like I said, being the opposition, it isn't easy. It isn't an easy task, and so we need to be prepared.
Absolutely. And so, could you explain what do you see as the role of the chief whip in the Conservative Party, and how it influences the functioning of the government and your party in Parliament?
So, obviously, since I mean, I'm still very quite new to the community. I'll say that right now. But when Right Honourable Callum Truss offered me this role, I obviously very quite new, but I learned this job very quickly. One thing I've been one thing I've been doing very well is I've been very what's the word? I've had a good communication with other party members and members of Parliament, and I think that's one of the key things you need in this job, because if you're not going to communicate, you're not going to obviously try to whip votes for any type of legislation, you're not going to do well in this job. And I think this is something you need to have on obviously the shadow cabinet, because if you don't have any of these things, then this inactivity is going to continue. And I'm going to assure, if I am chosen to continue as the shadow chief whip, that I will assure that there will be activity on the backbenches. On top of that, I'll ensure that I'll be able to successfully do my job and whip votes for this Conservative Party.
And so, what does the typical day look like for you as the chief whip, and how do you prioritize your tasks and responsibilities?
Well, obviously, my only cabinet role was obviously shadow chief whip, and obviously I've got other roles elsewhere. But one of my priorities is to keep communication with other members of Parliament, because let's face it, it's the member of Parliament who make the difference and make sure the British people's voices are heard. And so we need to make sure there's communication there. And one of my main tasks is to try and have them whip up ideas to make sure that we can put legislation on the table and that we can hold the government account. And although how I'm saying it sounds easy, it really isn't, because sometimes you'll have in other groups I've experienced where I've had to wait 2 days until I get a response, and then obviously I've had to act on it and make changes and report to the leader, and I have done that successfully. And I'm gonna my experiences from other communities, I'm gonna take this into this community as well, and I'm gonna assure that I am serving this role to the best of my ability, so I can make sure that first and foremost the British people's voices are heard, and like I said, we hold the government account. I will successfully do that if I'm continuing as shadow chief whip, and I'll continue to do my role to do so.
Absolutely. And how do you support new Conservative MPs in understanding their roles, the importance of party discipline, and navigating Parliament's complexities?
Well, I think when Megaminder had an interview with BBC, I think he said that he would open Conservative MPs with open arms. Because I think one thing as a party we've got to entail is that we've got to allow new members to come in, even if they're very new to politics. We should allow them to come in and learn through their experiences, even if it's just on the sidelines, just with the MPs. But you've got to give something back, in my opinion. And one thing is, you've got to be active and you've got to be committed. You've got to make a difference within the House of Commons, because that's the position where you've got to be making a difference. Like I say, you want to make it fun, you want to make everyone have an opportunity, because this is what this community is all about, to have fun but also make a difference. However, if you're just going to be there for just the title and that, there's really no point of obviously being in the House. So I say to the people who ever want to join the Conservative Party, we welcome you with open arms, but all we ask from you is that you're active and you're committed and you propose some good ideas for the party.
And going on to some policy questions for you is how do you determine which pieces of legislation are prioritized for party support, and how is this communicated to party members?
Well, when Callum, obviously during the previous general election, was obviously proposed, I think Callum had a quite a good way of how he addressed policies, and he did that very well. Obviously, how things I would do it, I'm one of them people who's very open. The leader I'm normally are is if I was elected Conservative Party leader, this is the leadership I would have had. I'm open to suggestions. I'm very bipartisan on things. I like to hear other people's ideas, even if it's some ideas from not even our part of the party. Because one thing I've got to make sure make sure it happens is that I've got to ensure that this legislation that is proposed is going to make a difference. Because so I mean, some politicians play party politics. I think that is a lot to do with obviously winning a general elections. I think Kenny Minor said that in his previous just previously. Um, he was talking. I made some notes here. He talked about priority policies on the foreign affairs side. Talking about being a bit more active on the national stage. Um, yeah, this is something we've got to make sure happens from our government, though. Because obviously, we can only do so much on the opposition, and from what we can only do now as the opposition leader, as the opposition bench, is that we can only do what we can, and that's writing legislation that benefits the British people.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, that you are bipartisan. How often do you work with the whips of other parties, and how do you navigate these interactions to serve your party's interests?
Well, currently I haven't had a lot of talks with the current Britain First Chief Whip. However, that is something I'm looking to do in the near future because I believe that, I mean, Britain First is currently in a minority government. So basically, I believe bipartisan is actually one of the best ways to put the British people first and to make sure that every piece of legislation that goes through benefits the British people. So one thing I want to do, if obviously I continue as Shadow Chief Whip, because as you know, obviously there's likely to be some cabinet reshuffles. Um, so what I'll be tending to do, obviously after today, I'll uh open to message some of the Britain First Chief Whip as well as the Labour Shadow Chief Whip as well, because I think it's absolutely crucial that we see from all sides of the story, if you get what I'm saying. Because if we can all make what's the word? Like if we can all come together and obviously decide, even if it means making legislation together, as long as my main priority as a politician in the community is to make a difference, and I think that should be everybody's idea to obviously make a difference. So one thing I'll be doing after the House of Commons is definitely I'll be messaging other chief whips to hopefully talk about legislation that way. But obviously I'll be speaking to obviously our party leader, Minnie Minter, and obviously on how we will obviously go about things. Because obviously this is new leadership.
Absolutely. And we thank you for coming on the program. This is the Conservative Party Chief Whip, the Right Honourable Organised Owen MP, joining us here on the program. For those just tuning in, my final question to you, Owen, is how do you see the role of Chief Whip evolving in the future, and how do you see that affecting Parliament during this term?
Well, I think the role only moves forward if the generation moves forward and the community moves forward. That's the only way that roles progress. And so, like I said, when it talks to legislation does move this community forward, and it gives us access to new things within in-game as well as just in the community as a whole. So if we can all come together and make sure that we can come together, like I say, with legislation ideas, absolutely, the chief whip role will move forward. It'll give us more accessibility of what our role entails, but it won't just be our roles as well. It'll be other cabinet roles as well that also obviously moves forward as well, and there'll be more obviously opportunities out there as well.
Absolutely, and we thank you for coming on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Conservative Party Chief Whip, the Right Honourable Organised Owen MP. We're going to take a quick break as we progress into our final segment of the show before we get on to PMQs tonight in Parliament. Alrighty.
Welcome back. You're inside Westminster with me and Lord Kitchener. Now we're going to discuss the PMQs which are happening in around half an hour. Charles, I'll let you take the floor.
Yeah, so tonight we have Prime Minister's questions at 8 p.m. In the House of Commons. This will be the first Prime Minister's questions of this government and the first Prime Minister's questions under the new Leader of the Opposition, the Right Honourable Mega Minor MP. We'll be seeing them sparring off on many questions, as he alluded to in his interview with us earlier, that he will be asking the government on in terms of looking at their manifesto promises, their promises to the electorate. So we will be covering that all tonight at 8 p.m. In the House of Commons will be Prime Minister's questions. Again, it will be a rival debate between the the Prime Minister and the Right Honourable Mega Minor, the Leader of the Opposition. This will be a first for Sky News, live streaming Prime Minister's questions, and so we look forward to it. We hope that you will all tune in tonight at 8 o'clock in the House of Commons chamber here on Sky News. We'll be live streaming Prime Minister's questions. But delving into that, there's been some speculation on the Conservative Party cabinet. Now, Callum, you have the insight there as the former Leader of the Opposition and former Leader of the Tory Party. Who do you see as coming into Eddie's shadow cabinet here?
Well, I believe it is a tradition for, obviously, the leader to bring in their supporters throughout the campaign. So I think we'll definitely see some new people coming into cabinet, which will be exciting. I do think we might see a few of the same faces in similar positions, mainly because of experience and expertise. Like I don't know their official username, will remain as Shadow Justice Secretary because of that experience that other people may not have. But I do think people like Dan will join cabinet because of those strong links and experience on external servers.
And moving on, who do you see filling? Do you see the Foreign Office changing in any way? Do you see that staying the same? And what about especially like the Cabinet Office? Who do you see filling those positions?
Well, going on to foreign affairs, let's be honest, Papo has got unmatched experience. He has worked across the Foreign Office. He's probably one of the most experienced people on the server. That is why I put him in the Foreign Office, well as Shadow Foreign Secretary, because I know he's the right candidate for the job. So I do believe he probably might stick to that position if he can keep it. For the Cabinet Office, I'm quite unsure because it's quite a new department. We've not really used it in past times. I remember when I served as Kobe's Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, which was quite a new position at the time, and people see it as useless, but in reality, it's not. You do a lot more behind the scenes. But this time, I do not know any candidates who could take on that position.
Obviously, we have the big, great offices of state. Do you see a shakeup in the Treasury, and do you see a shakeup in the Home Office? Who do you see as the right candidates for those two positions? They are vital for any party to have filled, and to have filled with competent people.
Well, I've worked with Hank. I appointed him as the Shadow Chancellor when I was Lotto, and I do believe he could probably keep the job. He is quite competent, and he knows the economy well. So I do believe he would be a good match for the Treasury. For the Home Office, I don't really know. I won't lie, but there is a few good candidates within the party that I do believe could take on that position and do it well.
And so, and just getting back to Prime Minister's questions, what do you think are going to be the top topics of debate tonight, and questions posed to the Prime Minister?
I think we could see links to the new Defence Secretary appointment, because obviously the new Defence Secretary only joined today, so that can raise concerns within the community, because we know nothing about this person. He's not really had a formal greeting to the community yet. He's just sort of been shoved into cabinet. So that could be a very big topic tonight. I also think that in the current attacks in Westminster could come up, and the company's house and the Treasury. We've not really got any updates from the Chancellor in recent time.
And so, the Leader of the Opposition mentioned to us here is the main attack that he has is transparency. And as your time as Leader of the Opposition, do you feel the government is lacking transparency with the British people? And how do you think that the Prime Minister will address this question if posed tonight?
Well, I believe he's going to continue to defend his cabinet. I tried to obviously attack on transparency, on trying to form a standards committee, but they said no, and I do believe that will come up again.
Absolutely. So tonight, Prime Minister's questions, 8 p.m., live here on Sky News. We'll be broadcasting the Prime Minister's questions. It will be an interesting one because it is not only the first Prime Minister's questions for the Prime Minister, but it is also the first Prime Minister's questions for the new Leader of the Opposition, the Right Honourable Eddie Megaminer. We have with us, this is inside Westminster with the Earl of Suffolk and and Lord Kitchener. Filling in for the Earl of Suffolk is the Right Honourable Sir Callum Truss, KBE MP. We will be back again tonight, live here on Sky News at 8 p.m. for Prime Minister's Questions. We thank you all for tuning in. Tune in every week at 7 p.m. for Inside Westminster with the Earl of Suffolk and Lord Kitchener. Be sure to tune in Friday for Politics Uncensored with the Right Honourable Sir Callum Truss, KB MP. And tune in Saturday for a new comedy show here on Sky News that we'll be having with Lord Henders. We look to have that, the Weekend Riot with Lord Henders, this Saturday at 8 p.m. Be sure to tune in to both of our shows. We'll be launching more shows here on Sky News in the coming days. We look forward to having you all.